I absolutely love a book that makes you think and think deep. Hi everyone, I'm here today to talk about this book. This is The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan, and this book was sent to me for review, and it has only just very recently been released, and I thought now was a perfect time to talk about it. So this book has been touted as being the new Handmaid's Tale, and if you know anything about me, you'll know that The Handmaid's Tale is my favourite book of all time, and so anything else that sort of promises me that good dystopian feel has me jumping straight in, and so I was very excited to receive this for review. This book is very thought-provoking. It follows the story of Frida. Frida is of Chinese heritage, living in America, and Frida was doing really well for herself. She was happily married, she had a good job that she enjoyed, and then she became pregnant. And when she became pregnant, it's no spoiler because it happens at the very beginning of the book. It's basically sort of the early premise. Frida's husband, very unfortunately, decides that he's going to do the cliche thing of cheating on her with a younger woman. And not only that, but when he is confronted about the fact that he has been cheating on her with a younger woman, he decides that he's going to leave Frida for this younger 28-year-old woman. And so Frida is left with a brand new baby to bring up on her own. And to make matters harder, she has to do co-parenting. And so some days she's having to hand over her baby for her dad's sort of turn at parenting, and she has to miss her baby for a few days. And being a mum myself, I can only imagine how hard that would be to have to hand your children over and not see them for a few days. And I mean, I know that is a reality for a lot of different people, but that for me, I found it particularly pulled at the heartstrings. However, Frida decides, for some unknown reason, that while she's looking after her 18-month-old daughter, that she'll nip out for a coffee and just leave her daughter in the house. And 10 minutes turns into 2 hours, and Frida ends up being reported and losing custody of a child. And what follows is the subsequent journey of Frida, initially trying to have visitation to her daughter and be able to still keep up that connection with her daughter before they go to court to decide what to do about Frida's indiscretion. However, that doesn't happen because of the social services system. Everything sort of falls around her, and she doesn't really get to see very much of her daughter at all. She has cameras put up in her house, and the whole thing just seems like it massively explodes, and Frida is now under 24-hour-a-day watch. This includes the messages that she'll send to friends, her emails, everything. She's under full watch. And so we live through this bit with Frida watching everything fall apart, but then we find out that that isn't all. The day of the court arrives, and we find out that Frida is not going to be just sort of granted access to a child again. Frida has to go on a year-long excursion to a school for good mothers. And wow, she's not allowed to leave. She has to give up everything. She isn't allowed to take her phone. She's allowed sort of supervised conversations with people. She's allowed to talk to her daughter over FaceTime, but it's scripted. She's not allowed to show too much emotion because it's considered smothering. And we quickly delve into what is a nightmare situation for any parent. And we start to find out some of the indiscretions that the other mums have been sent to this school for. And it's scary, to be honest. One of the mothers allowed a child to play out in the back garden by himself, and because of that, she's now lost custody of a child and she's having to live in this school for a year. And this message just sort of starts to trickle in of these unrealistic expectations and this sort of outside view of what the perfect mother is. I'm talking about how you look at your child, how you might hold your child. Is your grip too tight? Is it too slack? Are you making enough eye contact? It becomes pretty scary. And you could see how this could happen. And I can see now why this is compared to The Handmaid's Tale, because with The Handmaid's Tale, you could see how that could happen. When you're reading it, there's that horrible feeling in your stomach that actually this could well happen. And looking and reading this book, there's just that moment of thinking, wow, this could happen. And it just causes you to really judge everything that you may have done yourself in the past. I mean, I haven't ever gone out and left my children alone, but I mean, little things such as, I remember once, I picked up my phone while I was watching my daughter, and, she fell over. I was literally sending a WhatsApp message and my daughter fell over, and, it was awful. I was at a park and everyone was looking at me like I was just this terrible mum, and it was horrible. It was gut-wrenching, and all I did was look at my phone. And someone in this book has done something very similar and had their child taken off them, and they're now living in a school for good mothers. And I found it to be terrifying. And I think that this book is a really good metaphor for society at the moment, because everybody is just so on their soapbox, aren't they? There are so many different people trying to hammer one sort of opinion down your throat, and if you don't agree with that one opinion, then you are vilified, absolutely vilified. And it's a similar sort of situation in this book, where if you are not following the exact perfect model set out, with really unrealistic expectations and no room for deviancy, no room for being able to apply things to your own child and be able to follow your own child's needs, just following a sort of a one-size-fits-all method, which, if you know anything about kids, and you maybe even if you're a mum of more than one child, you'll know that one size does not fit all, and that makes this even more terrifying. For example, I have 2 children, and my children are so different. I've got to adapt my parenting completely differently when I'm dealing with each one, because what works for one does not work for the other. If I tried to treat one child the way I treat the other one, it wouldn't work. You've got to treat children differently. But in this world, within this book, there is absolutely no time for any of that. No time for any sort of parental instinct or knowing your child and acting in the best interest of your child. It is sort of a standard textbook situation. And as I say, I really could see this happening. If you're in the UK, you'll know that after you've had a child, you get the health visitors who come round and check that everything's okay and check on the developmental milestones of your kids. And that's meant to happen for the first 5 years, I think. And one of the times that I had a health visitor out, I can remember feeling massively annoyed, because with my daughter I used to use the word silly rather than naughty. So if she did something, I would say, oh, don't do that, that's a bit silly. I remember my daughter being asked to do something by the health visitor, and the health visitor said, oh, that's silly, and she looked at me and thought she'd been chastised, and I explained, oh no, sorry, she means silly as in funny silly. And the health visitor told me off. She really went down my throat, saying that I was setting her up for a fail because I'd used the word silly instead of naughty, and I should apply the word naughty to everything that she did that was a misdemeanor. And I remember feeling really chastised that day and really annoyed, because I feel like going around telling a child that they're being naughty all the time isn't for me. That's not my parenting. And so that was really in the back of my mind, those 2 moments when my daughter fell over, when I was sending a WhatsApp message, and the other time that I was told by a health visitor that using the word silly instead of naughty was terrible. And it just put me in the mind of what would happen if these sort of schools did open up, how many mothers would end up in them, how many mothers would end up losing their child for a year. What damage would that do to society as a whole? So overall, I thought this was fantastic. I thought it was a really interesting look. There are a few dystopian elements to this that I don't want to spoil, and I don't want to tell you what they do, but there were a few things that I found extremely shocking, and I found it to be a really interesting premise. It's one of those books that's extremely Moorish. The way that it is written just draws the reader in, and I found it really difficult to put this book down. The chapters are very long, so once you start deciding that you're going to read one chapter, you're there for a while, and then you don't want to stop reading at the end of that chapter. So I found it very easy to read, even though it was quite heavy, but it was also explosive and intriguing, and it really felt like a veiled look at society today, and I very much enjoyed it. So thank you very much for giving me this for review, and I would love to know if any of you have read it, or if any of you are going to, because I recommend this one. I really enjoyed it. So I'm off now because it's one of the first sunny days of the year, and I've got a double swing set that I've promised to put together. That's going to be an experience. So I'll speak to you all soon. Bye for now.